It all tells one story, the same result. You're going to want to own gold. If the war escalates significantly, that's going to have major ramifications on all kinds of investments, all aspects of the economy. Nearly everyone is misunderstanding the situation that we're all finding ourselves in right now. I'm talking about two different things here. The war in the Middle East expanding and the economy of America continuing its deterioration. Most people are missing the significance of what's happening right now. And in that, there's a lot of risks that you can avoid because you know about this stuff, and there's a lot of opportunities you can gravitate towards. The problem is that both of these major tides are happening at one time, with the war in the Middle East expanding significantly and the economic deterioration also expanding significantly. The problem is that they're both happening together.
This tells you all you need to know about Iran's murderous intentions and Iran's murderous nature.
This moment right now may be the most tumult or the most chaos and change that you've seen in a short period of time in your lifetime ever. This is important, it's serious, and it's going to affect all of us in a big way and relatively soon.
At Peter Leeds, we're all about getting you profits quickly and easily. Please subscribe for more premium investor enlightenment.
Please consider doing the Peter Leeds trifecta. That means like this video, comment on this video, and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. As the war in the Middle East continues to accelerate and spiral out of control, which it is, I'm going to show you all about that in this video. I'm also trying to find you a certain comment or quote that Benjamin Netanyahu said. I'm going to find out, put that in this video too, because when you see it, you're going to realize how significant all of this is. It'll be an aha moment where you see what he says, and then you understand what he implies and what that's going to mean for you. And we'll get into all of that in a minute, but I want to talk about the economy first. But the point to know is that as the war spirals out of control, the big moves you've seen already in things like gold and oil prices, that's only going to accelerate even more.
Iran continues to threaten international shipping lanes, hold foreign nationals for ransom, and engage in nuclear blackmail.
But closer to home here, let's talk about what's going on with the American economy. As the economy continues to decline, your quality of living is diminished. At the same time, most families don't even have $500 for an emergency. And a lot of people right now are working multiple jobs even when they don't want to. They've got an extra part-time job just to help make ends meet. Now, especially with these higher interest rates, it's going to be even more unpayable than already unpayable. And if you want to keep us ad-free and sponsorship-free, consider showing your support at peterleeds.com/army. And you know that we've racked up more debt as a nation than any nation has in the history of Earth. And that debt is admittedly, mathematically unpayable, admittedly by the government even. That's why they call it unfunded liabilities. That means we don't have the money for this. Now, especially with these higher interest rates, the unpayable debt's even more unpayable. A lot of pensions are going broke, especially the government ones. Delinquencies and bankruptcies are on the rise, both. Personal credit card debt is greater than it's ever been. Seems like you have a potential government shutdown every few months now. That's why the trade deficit keeps getting wider and wider by the day. This is all at a time when food inflation is still much too high and potentially going higher if the Federal Reserve doesn't get this inflationary bounce under control, which they won't be able to do, especially if we ever have to print some new money to pay for 3 different wars on 3 different fronts, to pay for the operating deficit, or to pay for expenses that we've already taken on by producing more debt now so we can afford to pay what we've already spent. Inflation is going to be stronger than the Federal Reserve wants it to be, and certainly stronger than any of us want it to be. But at the same time, it'll be even way worse, way stronger if they do any more bouts of quantitative easing or start creating new money like they've been doing since the inception of the country itself. Meanwhile, the petrodollar is being used much less frequently worldwide as nations such as Saudi Arabia and Russia and China are trading oil in their own currency for a change. These nations won't need as many US dollars, so they're going to let a lot of these absorb out into the wild, I say. They release them to the wild, they find their way back to our shores in America. Maybe the country buys something from America directly, like a Bombardier airplane. That money goes straight into the States. Otherwise, it'll go there indirectly. It bounces around between a few other countries, a few other currencies, and eventually those US dollars all find their way back to America. When and as that happens, what's happening is the inflationary pressures are just heating up and heating up and heating up even more because more dollars are coming back. Meanwhile, as oil prices spike, as we've seen with this conflict in the Middle East, that puts an inflationary boost on everything. Everything costs more for every company, every delivery person, every individual. Anyone who consumes anything is paying more because the price of oil increased, and that affected every aspect of every business.
Meanwhile, the fighting in the region is expanding.
The Pentagon announcing U.S. planes launched strikes against Iranian-backed militias after repeated attacks on U.S. bases in Syria and Iraq by drones and rockets.
Since subscribing in June, my small portfolio has increased by around 1,000%.
Just would like to say I started with $1,000 in my E-Trade account. I'm over $4,000 just a few months later and would have more if I would have just listened to your advice more.
So you can all have your own thoughts, your own views. What I'm saying is that the vast majority of people, not you because you're here learning the way the economy is actually working, but the vast majority of people have no idea what is going on right now and what's about to happen, how significant it's going to be. I'm talking about militarily, and I'm talking about economically. So I ask myself, everyone's got their own opinions, and ask yourself, what do I believe? What do you believe? What do I believe is going to happen? Do I believe that the conflict in the Middle East will cool down or escalate further? Do I believe that people are going to start recognizing the actual weakness in the underlying economy that they're not yet seeing and therefore react to it when they come to that realization? I also ask myself, do debts have to be paid? And I think about it and I think, well, there's a counterparty. If there's a debt, someone lent that money expecting to get paid back. So we've got these unpayable debts owed to China, Japan. A lot of our debt is owed to American people. That's why you don't want to default. You can default on China and just go to war with them, I guess. But you don't want to default on Americans who are owed the money. I believe that debts do have to be paid. Otherwise, there's going to be defaults. I believe the war is going to escalate significantly. And I believe there's going to be lone wolf attacks worldwide. I believe America is going to get pulled into the war because we're already in the war. One of our ships is actually already acting as a anti-missile defense system.
The message is simple. As Secretary Austin has consistently made clear, we will take all necessary measures to defend our troops and our interests overseas.
Overall, though, I think if I'm wrong, if everything that I'm assuming is going to happen doesn't happen, it's not as though there's going to be a drop off a cliff for oil prices or gold prices. I just believe the downside's limited. Things will cool off, hopefully, and that's what I'm hoping for, but maybe they cool off a little bit, but they're not going to cool off too much. But the upside is significantly higher, and it sounds awful to say upside for that will come to pass in a bad environment in the world, but I always say I'm just playing the cards I'm dealt. This horrible time in the world. I told my kids yesterday that this is the worst 3-week period of my life by far ever, just seeing what's going on in the world. But a lot of this stuff is going to happen either way. So you want to protect yourself to help the people you care about. That's why if you're invested in gold or oil, you're going to do better than if you hadn't been. By the way, guys, I've been instructed to tell you that a lot of the stuff we have here, the digital content, is a great gift because if you forget somebody to buy them a present for whatever holiday, you can just zip in and buy it from peterleeds.com. Listen to this from CNN. The U.S. carried out airstrikes Thursday targeting 2 facilities linked to Iranian-backed militias in Syria. That's U.S. jets attacking targets in Syria. It followed a series of attacks against U.S. forces in the region, which makes total sense. But Joe Biden said it was separate from the ongoing conflict in Gaza. I would argue that it's not separate at all. I'd argue that there's actually a direct connection. The U.S. is looking to send a strong message to Iran and other militias not to escalate their attacks or spark a wider conflict. This comes as roughly 900 U.S. troops have been deployed or deploying to the Middle East to bolster the U.S. force protection in the region, in addition to the already 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq and 900 in Syria. And so we've got also Germany and France and Poland, besides America, giving weapons to Ukraine in their fight against Russia, which they're actually starting to lose. We've got 2 U.S. carriers in the Mediterranean. You've got 1 U.S. carrier group in the Persian Gulf, which is literally on the shores of Iran. The attacks from Hezbollah and Lebanon are increasing against Israel targets. There's a lot of targeting back the other way from Israel back to Lebanon. And it's all just shaping up as Nostradamus said 500 years ago. It's going to line up with China, Iran, and Russia versus America and our allies.
Iran's foreign minister called on Israel to stop its air attacks on Gaza and warned the war might expand to other parts of the Middle East.
I have realized that according to the scenarios set by Hezbollah, any step the resistance will take will result in a huge earthquake against the Zionist entity.
He also warned at the UN that they will strike the U.S. if Israel persists in its bombing of the Gaza Strip.
If the war escalates significantly, that's going to have major ramifications on all kinds of investments, all aspects of the economy. So keep an eye on that as it plays out, because it's not cooling down yet at all. And as the economy stumbles into what it's already been stumbling into for years now, and I've been telling you guys about this a long time, the economy is heading off a cliff. It's a slow motion train wreck, and we're just starting to see pieces of it at a time. But that's why there's so much weakness underneath the surface. While they're telling you on the media how strong the economy is, because that's their job, they have to do that. While they're doing that, underneath the scenes or behind the scenes, underneath the surface, there's so many people that are struggling day to day just to pay their bills. So we just keep saying, well, let's create new money. We'll borrow more money. We'll create new money. And all the while, this is when other countries are buying our debt. They were giving us money, giving us their products, and we're just living high on the hog. Now we're losing the relevance of the reserve currency. We're losing the petrodollar in terms of the usage of it. And as that happens, it's just people backing away from fueling the American economy. A lot of nations that bought a lot of our debt are not doing that anymore. Speaking of Japan, speaking of China, when we lose that benefit that we didn't realize we were getting and benefiting from this whole time, we lose that, you're going to feel the loss of the benefit. That's something that's going to happen soon. And a lot of people who are investing in the stock market are investing in the way that they're thinking that over time it always goes up. Over time it always goes up. Right now is maybe not a great time to be exposed to the stock market, certain aspects of it, in my opinion. This is not personalized trading advice for you at any point. None of this is. But I am backing away from a lot of speculative stocks, a lot of major blue chip companies. I sold my shares of those. I backed away. I've gotten invested in oil and gold almost exclusively now. And of course, as we're the specialists in low price shares of companies just getting started, we're going to be talking about a few of those on the newsletter as well. Stocks that are trading for $2 each, that are just getting started, just building up their employee headcount. They're getting a proof of concept for their product or service that they're going to sell. That's when you get involved with the company and $1,000 turns into 6 figures. You got to find one of those stocks in your life, one time. That's what we look for in the Peter Leeds newsletter. When you add up the military escalations, the speed at which it's happening, along with the speed of the acceleration of the American economy, it all tells one story, the same result. You're going to want to own gold.
Above all, Iran must face a credible nuclear threat.
Please consider doing the Peter Leeds trifecta. That means like this video, comment on this video, and make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. And if you want to keep us ad-free and sponsorship-free, consider showing your support at peterleeds.com/army.